Football is back, and BetOnline is your number one information source for all your sports wagering info with all the up-to-the-minute stats, news, scores, and matchup breakdowns. Get the latest game odds, spreads, and totals from the NFL and college football at your fingertips with BetOnline's real-time updates on statistics, news, and odds. From week one all the way to the college football playoff and Super Bowl, BetOnline gives you access to the best football promotions and contests available anywhere online. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Remember to use promo code Bleav to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's BLEAV. BetOnline, where the game starts. Bleav in the Arizona Cardinals. It is the Arizona Cardinals centric specific show where, of course, we talk about the Arizona Cardinals here in the Phoenix metropolitan area. I am one of your co-hosts. I am Javon J. Love Adams, and with me, as always, is a man who played professional baseball, also was a part of that first Super Bowl bound team for the Atlanta Falcons. So he is vested in the NFL. He's an author and he is a motivational speaker. I'm talking about none other than Ed Easy Smith. What is good, my brother?
Hey, we're back in town, man. Back in town, and I got some intel from that other side that we're gonna be playing this coming week. So I got a chance to check them out this week, and you got a chance to see our Cardinals perform. So let's get into it, bro.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So I held it down on Monday since you were globetrotting and doing your thing, man. So definitely want to hear about the intel that you have. And of course, I was at that game. It was sad, man. It was sad. Oh my goodness, it was sad. So coming to the State Farm Stadium this week.
What I'm sitting over there.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was sitting over there watching the scoreboard. Yeah, I was sitting over there watching the scoreboard. And at one point, because I can't see it's 20-0. I'm like, what the heck is going on over there? And then, just lost track of the game. And I'm thinking they're going to pull this off and get them a W. Next thing you know, later on in the day, discovered that they fumbled that one away. So I'm real interested to get your thoughts on what exactly happened.
I think it's what we will probably end up seeing this week against the Dallas Cowboys. It got conservative and they didn't make adjustments. We always talk about adjustments when it comes to the NFL. That's what the best coaches do. That's what the best coaches do across all sports. And you can chalk it up to maybe inexperience, but again, if you look at a couple of people I heard on the airwaves this week mention that this is the first time in terms of a Gannon defense that has maybe not made adjustments, especially he was on the biggest stage when he was with the Eagles in the Super Bowl, and how his defense didn't quite live up to the expectation. And so maybe this is, as you always, when we discuss the self-evaluation, maybe if somebody's being honest with them, that they'll say to him, we got to self-evaluate, and here's where you can improve, and then maybe that can flow down to defensive coordinator Nick Rallis as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't get a chance to see any of the highlights, so I'm really going blind on this one. I did, like I said, I saw a team over there in Dallas that is coming in here that's gonna, obviously gonna look at that film, but let me ask you a question. And we'll get in. How did the Giants, being 20-0, how did they turn that around? And what didn't we do to adjust in that manner to maybe, win that game?
Well, the first thing is the offense put up enough points if you put up 28 points, that should be enough to win you the game for sure. But I think what ended up happening is Daniel Jones started running the ball a little bit more. He got 40 some odd yards in that game in terms of rushing yards, but it wasn't just the quantity of the yards, but then it became that threat. And there were quite a few times where the edge rusher had an opportunity to get him, but it's almost he did the high knees and got out of it and just was able to lengthen the play just enough to be able to get a completion. Also, the first touchdown that they had that they got obviously in the second half was just a few plays into the second half was over the top in terms of when we know that there are opportunities for improvement when it comes to the secondary for the Arizona Cardinals, to say the least. And that they didn't continue to take advantage over the top, but it was that soft spot. It's almost as like it seemed like the Cardinals were playing zone, but they never adjusted because that sweet spot, they kept kind of going in that sweet, 10 to 15 yard, zone or area, and just kept getting those completions. And then they'd hit them with a little Saquon Barkley. And that's why I say that they got conservative when it came to the offense, because there's some points they left on the board, especially in the first half. But in the second half, I would say the defense just didn't adjust, in my opinion. I was, from my vantage point, it looked, and I was talking to Elijah as well, and they're not adjusting. And there were some other folks in the area as well saying, are they adjusting on defense? They're not making the adjustments. And so I think that was the lack of adjustments was the nail in the coffin, really. And then we talk about momentum. I say momentum is kind of real. You say you don't think so as much, but it's about confidence. And so you get a couple of points on the board, and then you get that confidence that allows you to say, yeah, we can win this. And then I think the opposite happened for the Cardinals.
So what was it like in the stadium when the tide started to turn? Could you look and see how, like, the Cardinals were just like unfolding, or was it a situation where the Giants just took over?
I would say I don't think any of when you lose a game, when you lose a game in that fashion, there's blame to go around for everybody. But I'll say I don't think that the Cardinal players were shrinking in the moment. But this is one of the things that I want to talk about today. Was one of the things is home field advantage. There were so many, or in the case of the Cardinals, home field disadvantage, because there were so many Giant fans that were there. It was unbelievable. There were two back-to-back false start penalties I want to say it was the fourth quarter, that on the Cardinals on offense, because it was so loud. And I mean, it was loud. The first half, the Giants fans, they were hushed because there was, the first half ended 20-0 with them being down 20-0. And just that first touchdown just gave them a little bit of life. That second touchdown is what did it. That when the Cardinals returned, they answered. They made it 28-7. But then when the Giants made it 28-14, it was almost as if that's all that the Giant fans, and again, there were so many. It was ridiculous, and that's where the noise level it was deafening at times, in my opinion, just being in the building with those Giants fans when the Cardinals were on offense and the Giants fans were just so loud, and I think that made a difference. The home field disadvantage.
Was the stadium full, and what was the percentage of Giants to Cardinals fans?
If you look at what the numbers say, it was 96% full. I could maybe about 90% full, maybe about 90. There were a lot of empty seats, but there was a lot of that, whatever they call it, that New York blue, whatever that color is. There was a lot. There were, where we were, the end zone. So one end zone has Arizona in it, the other end zone had Cardinals. So we were at the Cardinals, on the Cardinals side, on the 400 section, way up. But so in that area, if I looked to my right, there was almost a whole section, or at least a section at least 2/3 of that side of the stadium where the majority was New York Giant blue, and then peppered all the way throughout the rest of the stadium. But yeah, they had a strong contingent. It reminded me of when you see the Raiders, when the Raiders want to show up and show out, or when the Pittsburgh Steelers want to show up and show out, or when the Cowboy fans want to show up and show out as well.
Oh, that's going to happen this weekend for sure. And I will tell you, Jay, there were times in my career, my first year in Atlanta with the Falcons, we weren't very good, and other teams would come over. Even I remember one particular game, your Raiders fans came all the way across the country to Atlanta, and I remember coming out of our own locker room, and it was to boos, and it was more boos than cheers. And it does, it wears on your psyche a little bit. I remember thinking, damn, our own fans hate us. And then I realized it wasn't our own fans hate us. It was, we had more Raiders and the black hole all the way over there in Atlanta. And it does morph into a road game or a home game on the road, or however you want to say it. And just as you mentioned, You're combating the noise, trying to figure out, do we have to go silent count in our own stadium? That's crazy.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And then the momentum, we use that M word all the time. Momentum, it's a shifter sometimes just in the psyche. And I would say even more, it's just the confidence rising and falling from one side to the other. Because, you're in the same environment up until the point where the game changes and turns. And I could only imagine you're out there and the Cardinals, young, team, trying to, pull this upset off. You're up 20-0, and then everything starts to shift and turn on you. And it can be demoralizing. And I can only imagine how rough a loss that was. The problem is you got to shake that one off. And what's going to have if you thought, Jay, that the Giants came in and took over this stadium, wait till you see this weekend. Are you at the Cowboys game this week?
No, I'm not. I'm not going this week. No.
Okay. So we'll see this one from our televisions, but wait till we see the amount of Cowboy, gray or blue or whatever they're wearing out there. It's going to be a total takeover, and they're obviously even closer, and they have a lot of fans, from everywhere, from California all the way around us. So it's going to be a tough game for the Cardinals. We do have some injury news and stuff like that, but I don't think that's going to be a big factor in this game, because what I saw, if you want me to give you a briefing on what I saw from the Cowboys.
Yeah, what can we expect, especially what you saw, because you were at the Jets, the Cowboys Jets. So when you look at that defense, the offense has been playing mistake-free for the Cowboys, so no turnovers when looking at the stats. But what can we expect from a defensive standpoint? Because it would seem like Micah Parsons is that dude, and they also lost Trayvon Diggs, so I don't know if that's going to be a big deal. And I mean, it has to be. It's going to impact, but how much of an impact that'll be. But yeah, talk about what you saw, what we can expect to see in terms of it from on the defensive side for the Cowboys.
It looked like, Jay, they had 13 dudes on defense out there. That's how fast and how confused the Jets looked, and they were all. It wasn't a beatdown till later on in the game, because the Jets, I'll give them props, they kept it close, but you could tell it was almost just like a swarm of bees coming, and you could hear it. You know that sound. You start, and it was almost like it was serious. It was like it was coming from around the corner. You just kept looking for it, and when it came, bro, it was a swarm, and they made the Jets look like they didn't even deserve to be on the same field with them once they got to where they were supposed to be. In that game, offensively, just efficient as all outdoors. And I would say this much: they're working at a pace right now that I haven't, and I kept my eye on even this with San Fran last night when they played against the Giants. The Dallas Cowboys are getting to the line of scrimmage so quickly and giving Dak so much time to look and see and then make his corrections. And at the same time, you're not allowing the defense to even get on their toes. They're kind of, it's almost like a fast break offense, but they're not rushing, but they're being so efficient, and everything looked, just unbelievably good in terms of their how they're orchestrating things. They're not putting too much on Dak's shoulders. That defense is kind of leading everything. If they come in and play it the way they did against the Jets, and like we mentioned, it's obviously a home away game for them, but if they get their fans in here and they get going, it could be a fast turn on the Cardinals, because they look just that good. I'm serious.
Interesting. And since you were up close and personal, as on a higher level outside of sports, I'm so much more positive minded, right? When it comes to sports, I'm such a skeptic at times. I reserve judgment. I keep these things, the respects and all that so close. But I have been hearing a lot of people say, and I guess you co-sign that the Cowboys defense is for real, and that the Cowboys offense might even be for real as well.
Well, the thing that we'll have to see, obviously, with Diggs going down, is going to affect the secondary. But my thoughts on that are, if Micah Parsons can create as much havoc as I saw him create against the Jets, you're not going to have to worry about them getting balls, to receivers. You're going to have to worry about Dobbs throwing balls to just literally throwing balls to their secondary because it was so confusing, and you could almost see poor Zach Wilson. He just once they kind of figured out the scheme and they started firing on him, that front put so much pressure on him that he once again reverted to that deer in the headlights look,
Okay.
and he was ready, bro. They had him prime once Michael Parsons. And here's the interesting thing about Michael Parsons: you can't locate him. Every snap, he's coming from the edge. They got him coming, twist from the edge. Then they line him up in the middle of the formation, and he's just coming from everywhere. So it's hard to account for him, and that's the biggest problem. If you don't know where he's going to line up every play, and your offensive line, this puts so much pressure on your offensive line, or you have to revert to whatever side he's on, leaving guys in the chip. But it's so much is going to have to be orchestrated by Joshua Dobbs to shift the line to this side, the protections, or go to this, or maybe we'll leave a guy in because he might be coming out the middle. It's going to be so much pressure on Dobbs that I'm not sure he's ready for it to get the Cardinals into the proper protections, and I see them wreaking havoc, with removing Parsons around. And then the other thing, you start paying too much attention to him, then you got guys coming free in all other parts of your, of the front. So this is going to be a true test. I'm not saying they can't pull it off, but this is going to be a true test of how far this offense and Joshua Dobbs and them have come. And if they stay conservative, it's not going to look pretty, because I don't think you can beat them with a conservative game plan.
See, that's the thing, is that Joshua Dobbs played much better last week than he did in week one. And I think, and I don't want to speak for you, but I think that we both didn't really knock Joshua Dobbs to the point where we just think that he's not capable of of being able to manage a game. It was a matter of the play calling, and the play calling in this case in the first half, and even that first play for the most part of the first half, it wasn't conservative. I said on Monday that if there was a zero, or the meter for conservative to aggressive, if 10 is being super aggressive and 1 is being just not really aggressive at all, they were on 5 or 6 for most of the game. But what happened, I think, in the latter portions of the second half, they did start to go to that 4-ish, and they started to become a little more conservative. But what they did was, he was actually, his yards per average per catch were better than week one. And he actually ran the ball a bit. He was able to scramble a bit and get some yards, so that helped. But they left what they have to realize, especially coming against an opponent like this, where the Cowboys, where their defense, where they're coming in 2-0, and of course the Cardinals are 0-2. I think that they can't leave points on. They can't just continue to go for 3. And what I mean by that is there were 2 of the drives in the first half of last week's game. They got great field position, but it seemed like they were playing that let's just get 3 game. And so that they became conservative in their play calling in that way. There was an interception. They had great field position. They ended up getting a field goal, and then another long drive, and they ended up getting a field goal. And if you want to try to rack up at least a couple of wins this season, that is where you have to be more aggressive as opposed to being less aggressive. Because if you think about it, if was a fifth, we'd be all messed up. But they should be 2-0. And think about the difference in that. If you lose the next 15 games, at least we 2-0. We don't have to worry about that. And I think that's where the play calling has to get better.
Well, the analogy I would use, Jay, if you go to Vegas and, say you got a couple $100 in your pocket, you got a couple choices, man. You can decide to play conservative and walk out of there with that $200 in your pocket, or sometimes you got to double down, and then especially when you get a lead like they did against the Giants, that's when you're all in. That's when you let it all out of the bag, because that's when you turn 200 into $1,000, that type of thing, If you're sitting there and every chance you get, you have an opportunity to double down or split, and it's like, yeah, what's that old time? Scared money don't make money. And the same thing goes for your offense. Like if you got an opportunity, you're up on these guys. That's when you make it even. You double down and you make it even more, putting more pressure on them because you're maybe pull a couple of those tricks out of the bag. Instead of 20-0, you get up on them 27-0. Now they've got to really come out of their offense. They allowed the Giants to just stay within their game plan. For if I'm hearing from you right, they were still running the ball using Barkley. When you're down 20-0, Jay, if you think about it, that's when it's like, well, we got to open the bag up because we can't afford the Cardinals allowed the Giants to conservatively still stay in their game plan, run the ball. We got to score here, even though they might have scored again. But then we just gradually, when you're up 20-0, man, you're supposed to be making them really nervous. And that's what we never did. We never made the house nervous. We never started, putting that money out there. And it caused them, just bit them in the end once again. And you keep bringing that up. They're going to stay conservative. They're going to lose some of these games that they should be winning.
Now, speaking of winning, though, and the Cardinals can't expect to win without really, again, I've said it again, aggression is the key. Not silly aggression, but just aggression. Because if you look at the injury report, we talked a little bit about one player that's going to be out with Trayvon Diggs, the cornerback for the Cowboys. Curse, the safety, Martin, the guard, and I know I'm mispronouncing, but the center, they're all questionable. But Buda Baker's on the injured reserve, so he won't be available. Lecky Fotu, the defensive tackle, he's questionable. Josh Woods, the linebacker, he's questionable. And then Carlos Watkins, the defensive tackle, he's doubtful. So that's on the defensive side of the ball. They are taking a lot of hits. In the defense, last week's game notwithstanding, they've shown, at least the first half of the game, they definitely shined. They have to really do some things. So maybe that's where the adjustments come in to try to give different looks. The one of the things that Jonathan Gannon said when in his introductory press conference was that he wants to be, they want to be a kind of a chameleon of sorts, to be able to morph into whatever they need to do to win this game. If this week they need to make sure that they are keeping that pedal down when it comes to offense. They were very physical last week, where with Connor getting over 100 yards rushing, and so they had some really good running. It boggles the mind that they gave up that game and they lost 31-28 in that fashion. It's just really unfortunate. But I think that's if they're going to win this game, the coaches, again, I'm not putting it all on the coaches, but when you're looking at yourself to see what can I do to improve, if you're a player, then you might say, man, maybe I wasn't as aggressive as I should have been, or maybe I lost focus because we were up 20-0. But from a coaching perspective, hopefully they're looking and saying, this is how I should adjust. If nothing else, I should adjust to be able to keep the pedal down, or if they find our weakness, our underbelly when they're on offense and we're on defense, and this is what I need to do to adjust to give us an opportunity to get a takeaway, or at least get a turnover on downs, or get them to punt the ball.
Well, this is a game that it is imperative that they come out swinging. You can't fall behind to this Dallas team and give them the luxury of knowing that we have to throw the ball to try to get back into it. They will unleash on us. And I think that's what happened with the Jets. The Jets stayed in it as long as they could. And it was almost like one of those dams that had the little hole, and it started to crack and the water started to seep in. And before you knew it, that thing was coming down. And that's what I fear. This might be a game for the Cardinals where if you get off to a slow start and you let them get on, the dam ain't even going to have a chance to break. It's going to be like the levee broke early and the whole thing was flooded, because I see so much talent on the side of the Dallas Cowboys. And if, we allow them to come in here and take over this game early, it could be one of those ugly ones. I think it's a double-digit spread as it is. You know how hard it is to be a double-digit dog at home, bro.
Man.
Like I said, and that, it's a week-to-week process. Obviously, what the Cowboys did last week doesn't matter. What the Cardinals did last week doesn't matter. But looking at the I guess the lopside in talent and obviously coaching experience and this could be an ugly game. I'm just hoping, like you said, that the Cardinals coaching staff, they've got to put the foot on the pedal and they've got to stop with this conservativeness because and I keep saying, Jay, in this situation, what do you have to lose? We should be one of those teams that every week, teams looking at us like, you never know what those dudes are going to do because
Right.
they're just going to throw it up against the wall and see what happens. But I, I I have a big fear of this one because I've seen the enemy up close, and I'm like, doggone, damn, they look good. And this could be a game, an ugly game for the Cardinals. No time, like I said, no time to be conservative, no time to be worrying about tomorrow. They need to put it all out there and just, and see what happens moving forward.
I'm telling you, if the Cardinals offense can play like they played in the first half, those two drives that I mentioned aside, then they'll at least be competitive. And that's the word that I used on Monday was when it comes to, yes, well, some folk, you have to tear it down to be able to build it back up. But hopefully, when you build it back up, the people who are doing the construction and doing the laying the blueprints, that you trust them to be able to do their job. But what I mean is that wins might not be how we measure the success of the season. It's how competitive they are. Competitive. And in the first week, they were competitive. Second week, they were competitive, but I'd rather see consistent competitive nature as opposed to competitive in the first half, and then the second half we wonder where you go, or for the majority of the second half we wonder where that fight went. And that's all for them. I think for fans that are being honest with themselves, that's what they're hoping to see. And when you see colossal breakdowns like that you can't have that. But if we see the other end of the spectrum where they just get blown out by the Cowboys, or they get demolished, they just get manhandled, that I think will have fans inching closer to that A word, apathy, that I talk about, and that you really don't want, because then you just might as well just expect to see, when you call it a home game, just tell the opposing team, don't worry, you can call this a home game for you too. So instead of 8 or 9, now you get 10 because you came in here and you visited the Arizona Cardinals at State Farm Stadium, because it will, fans will, you ain't gonna want to spend that time in traffic or to plop down $20 for two items or something. Nah, man. So you have to compete. Don't get blown out. And they're definitely at risk of that this week.
Well, you bring up some great things in your eloquent soliloquy right there. The one of the things that I think we even talked about at the beginning of the season, because we weren't going to know what this team was through preseason, nobody playing. It was going to take us a month to get our idea of what we were going to, this 2023 edition of the Cardinals was going to look like. And one of the things we talked about, it's not going to be about the wins and losses. It's going to be a little bit about how they're playing. Are they giving it their all out there? Or if they are getting beat, are they giving up? So far, after the first 2 weeks there, I have to say, even in losses, I've been impressed with I'm not impressed with certain aspects, but I am impressed that these dudes are out there fighting. And again, and the staff at least have them in the games, and they don't look like that version a few years ago when we used to say, when Steve Wilkes was the coach here, and it was like, oh my God, they are giving. You can see guys giving up out there. There was no fire, guy. There was nobody flying around the field. We are at least seeing an organization that is giving us everything they have. They just don't have a lot. That's the problem. They just don't have a lot, but they're out there fighting. They're giving it their all, Jay. And if nothing else, we can say we got at least heading in the right direction. Imagine if they had talent out there, it would be probably a different story. The way we would probably be a 2-0 team. We could be a 2-0 team, depending on our opponents. The other problem is, look who we have coming in here shortly. Some of the first 2 games here, those are the ones you sure would have liked to have had in your pocket, because the stretch is coming up. with Cowboys and 49ers and different teams is not going to be an easy road to hoe. And, these might have been our best two opportunities early, but I do like the fact that they're at least giving it all. Like I said, we just don't have a lot to give.
All right, so Bleav in the Arizona Cardinals. So let's get to our selection. So who you got in this one? I'll go first. I think it might not, it might be a bad one. I would say 35-14. 35-14.
Oh, yeah. I was
Cowboys.
looking, yeah, I was looking 35-10. I really, and that's a beat down in the NFL.
Yeah.
But I don't see us having enough offense to compete with staying, even with the Cowboys. And then, like I said, if we fall behind and unleash that Dallas defense, that's when they start running stuff back and sacking us, and it could be ugly. But we'll hope. It's sad when you say, "Well, I hope we can at least keep this one close," but I don't see this being a close game. Dallas 34-10.
What's funny, and I think you mentioned this either on our radio show, Easy Sports Talk Show, or maybe it was here on Bleav, but how Vegas gets it so right, because the Giants were favored by 3.5, right? Last week, and so I'm thinking, man, people making a money hand over fist, right? And then when the Giants come back and they win by 3. I mean, it's that hook that gets you. But I was thinking of you the whole time, thinking, how did Vegas get this so spot on? Because if you put money on the Cardinals and you were thinking, yeah, man, I got this. It maybe because maybe the first drive or two, and you put money, and then your money was gone, because Vegas, they're not in the business of trying to lose money. They're in the business of making money.
It blows my mind, Jay, how they get it so right. It's almost like, it's almost like me playing Madden with my son. He toys with me so much because he's so good at it that he can make the game be whatever he wants to be. There are times I'm playing him and I'm looking like out of the side of my eye. I'm like, I know he's over here just fooling with me, because he's doing all kind of crazy stuff, letting me stay in the game. And then all of a sudden it's like, then all of a sudden out of nowhere, Jay, it's like when he wants to do something, he does it. It's like Vegas has their joystick, man, their controllers, and they're like, okay, let's make this one 3.5. And it's like, how do they do that? They figure it out, and in the end, it's like, it's unbelievable how close they get to the number all the time.
That's why places like BetOnline make money. And we are presented by BetOnline, of course. And so this has been Bleav in the Arizona Cardinals. We do it twice a week. We did it on Friday this week because my man was traveling, man. And I had to get him, man. You didn't want to see me twice on Bleav by myself, y'all. So that's what we got it in today. But we do this thing twice a week on Monday and Thursday. Monday, we look back on the previous weeks or the game that just took place. And then Thursday, we look ahead to the upcoming opponent. So tell a friend about what we have going on here at Bleav. You can check us in the SiriusXM app, on Pandora, all that good stuff. Wherever you find your podcast, just type Bleav in Cardinals, and you will get where you need to go. So as we always like to say around this time, you can.